been in touch about this incident, what we're going to do about it. So I'm working hand in hand with her. We have sent federal prosecutors last night from my office in DC to Minnesota. They should be landing any moment now. We activated the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office as well. And this has the highest attention of the Attorney General and my Department of Justice team, because it is, as you said in your intro, this isn't actually a question of whether we're going to stand for it. We don't stand for it in this country. And not every case that we do at the DOJ gets the headlines, but we've already prosecuted numerous attacks on churches so far in the last 9 months since I took office under Pam Bondi's leadership. We are investigating multiple attacks on synagogues. It is evil to attack any house of worship in America. It is illegal. And what I saw yesterday made me ashamed, frankly, for the United States, that we have an Attorney General in Minnesota, Keith Ellison, a District Attorney, Mary Moriarty, a Mayor, Jacob Fry, and Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, who absolutely refuse to enforce our state laws. Their own state laws prohibit this very conduct. Well, if they're not going to enforce their laws, we will enforce our federal laws, and we are already doing that. And so, as you know, and as people have said, the prior administration prosecuted people under the FACE Act for peacefully praying outside abortion clinics where unborn children were being killed inside. Now, that's protected by federal law. That's up to Congress. However, that same law gives us the right at the Department of Justice to prosecute the same kind of conduct vis-a-vis any house of worship. And there's been a lot of talk of the First Amendment thrown around. The First Amendment includes the right to pray without interference. It includes the right of these people to not have so-called journalists and a mob of activists disrupt their sacred day of prayer. And so, as far as I can tell, these very foolish people have already, many of them, self-identified online as to who they were. They posted who their accomplices were. Don Lemon has made numerous admissions online as to his participation here and his intention and his knowledge of what was going to happen inside that sacred place. And so we're gathering the facts, and there will be action here. I know people are frustrated. Where are the arrests, etc.? Let me explain that for you and your team, Benny, because state prosecutors could have arrested some of these people yesterday. They don't have some of the same hurdles that we do in the DOJ. With DOJ, we gather our facts, we go to a federal judge has to issue the search warrants. We all know what the federal judges are doing right now in Minnesota. We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. Who funded this? What else? What other crimes may have occurred? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Did anyone cross state lines to do this? All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges.
Armin, I've just pulled up the Klan Act because this is the first time that I've heard this mentioned. This is an act that was passed in 1871, correction there, to combat the Ku Klux Klan and protect African Americans' voting rights, especially the Enforcement Act, which is known as the Force Act. So here's some of the information on screen. Would you mind breaking down for us, because we have just read the FACE Act and how this is an affinity to the FACE Act, and obvious and egregious demonstrable violation of the FACE Act, because they were entering a place of worship, harassing and threatening. We just played a video of a bearded man, who was threatening to attack the Christians that were worshiping there, so it seems like an obvious FACE Act violation. But the Klan Act here, it is on screen. First time I've heard it mentioned. Can you unpack this for us?
Yeah, the Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the southern states, Dixiecrats mainly, were refusing to give them equal rights. In fact, that you had sheriffs and you had law enforcement harassing the newly freed slaves. So the Klan Act is a law that makes it illegal to terrorize citizens, to violate their civil rights, to get together and conspire to violate the civil rights. It is often used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. The we in the federal law enforcement parlance call this 241 and 242 civil and criminal conspiracies. And so what the Biden administration did is if three grandmas got together to pray outside an abortion clinic for the souls of the people inside, and including unborn children, they would say, oh, that's not just a violation of the Klan Act, that's a conspiracy to violate the civil rights of women going in there to get abortions. And so we're going to add additional charges and punish that more and make it from a misdemeanor under the FACE Act to a felony under the Klan Act. And President Trump pardoned the pro-life protesters in those cases. I have recently defended successfully in the 11th Circuit a case called Oropesa, a case of Jane's Revenge, the pro-abortion protesters violently attacking crisis pregnancy centers in Florida, and we had the court uphold the Klan Act criminal enhancement to the FACE Act. So I know this is very deep in the weeds, but the point is there are a number of things. The FACE Act is just the start. Like I said, you have material support for disruptive activities. You have conspiracy to violate civil rights. You have potentially the use of other instrumentalities to commit crimes. And so some of these folks who did this have self-identified. Don Lemon himself has come out and said he knew exactly what was going to happen inside that facility. He went into the facility and then he began, quote unquote, committing journalism. And as if that's sort of a shield from being an embedded part of a criminal conspiracy. It isn't. And so, we're getting our ducks in a row. We're putting the facts together. And this is a very serious matter. Come next Sunday, nobody should think in the United States that they're going to be able to get away with this. Everyone in the protest community needs to know that the fullest force of the federal government is going to come down and prevent this from happening and put people away for a long, long time.
So, praise God. I mean, that's so wonderful to hear. I was thinking through and deconstructing this, Harmeet, and thinking, well, wait a second. What would the left do if Alex Jones stormed a mosque and then started interviewing the imam up at the altar, right, or at the front of the mosque, right, while everyone screamed at Muslims trying to pray? Of course, it would be the single biggest protest moment and offense, and people would lose their minds. The entire country would burn. There would be protests in every city in America. It'd be one of the biggest stories in the world. Why this is allowed to happen,
let me get that boomer out for
and
you.
why it is fomented, and why it is giggled at. I'm so thankful for this administration for actually finally drawing the line, because of course you don't want to see this happen at a synagogue. And no, it's not an act of journalism if I kick in the door of a synagogue and run up to the rabbi and start live streaming them as people scream at at Jewish people trying to pray. No, that's not an act of journalism.
It's a desecration. And
it's an act of terrorism. Yes.
One of the issues here is the people on the left that we're talking about, they're not familiar with what goes on inside a house of worship. A lot of them are godless people, obviously, because otherwise, you're right. No matter what house of worship this happens at, this is illegal in America. The FACE Act is non-denominational. We are investigating FACE Act violations against synagogues. And, we have the same problem. There are godless people in this country who are terrorizing people where they're most vulnerable. That is the very last place this should happen in America. It should happen nowhere, of course. No one should feel afraid, but we won't tolerate it. The Attorney General feels deeply about this. We both spoke to the pastor last night who was so calm in the face of a threatening mob invading his sanctuary. He acted very, very bravely and appropriately, and we have given them some guidance on how to proceed here. But look, this will not be allowed to happen anywhere in America, and it's shameful.
That's so wondrous. It's so incredible to hear. So you and Pam Bondi called the pastor. You spoke to the pastor last night. Everyone's praising this pastor for such his calm, peaceful demeanor and keeping his head here.
Yeah, he's actually great, and it turns out he had a North Carolina accent, and I grew up in the same town as his wife, so it's a small world, and he's a great leader of his congregation. But I'm sure every pastor in America is worried: is this crazy lunatic mob, well funded by the left, going to come into my church they better not. We are on it, and we are putting all the resources possible into it.
Well, that's exactly right. I just wanted to set up a series of events for you, and I'm sure that you've already investigated this because Don Lemon is speaking out directly to you and saying that he had nothing to do with it, except for, well, we could see that Don Lemon was delivering coffee to the protesters beforehand. In Don Lemon's own live, he said that he knows that the protest is about to go and pull up to certain locations. He can't tell us where they're going to go, but the organizer knew because she posted on Facebook right here. Here's her Facebook post explaining that they were going to attack a church that day. She even tags Don Lemon in this. Then Don Lemon gives the organizer, who's some famous BLM organizer from the George Floyd era, he gives her a kiss live on camera while Don Lemon is sort of leading the charge here into the church.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's a lawyer too.
Oh, really? So it defies explanation, Harmeet, that they didn't know that he's an innocent party and that he's just journalisming. Really quickly, if you don't mind, he had a message to you, and I'd like to play it here. Got your name wrong, but it's just active journalism. Here we go.
MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true. So let me just make it clear. This a assistant attorney general, I don't know, something Hammett. Gillen or whatever.
So thank you for joining the show, Hammett.
I had no affiliations in that organization. I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism, which was report on it, talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, the church, and the organization. That's it. It's called journalism.
Okay. Your response to Don Lemon?
Well, look, we have a presumption of innocence in this country, so I want to preserve my ethical duties here. But let me just say that he's a journalist. He was a journalist. I don't know what he is now, but journalism is not a badge or a shield that protects you from criminal consequences when you are part of a crime. And I think the videos show how close he was to these folks. I think further evidence will show more information about that, but he clearly knew, and he stated before going into the facility, and it's on his own video, what was going to happen there. What was going to happen was a violation of federal law, federal criminal law, and I don't know what to say. I mean, the FACE Act has been out there for more than 30 years, and there were lawyers involved in this so-called protest, and their purpose was to terrorize people of faith in a house of worship. They were targeting a different pastor, not the one seen on camera, who they got information was a ICE supervisor. None of that matters. It's off limits to go into a house of worship to do your little protest. Protests can occur on public property.
Don Lemon, you are a sorry piece of shit. I don't know how the hell you can survive at night, sleeping at night, doing that shit. I cannot judge you or pass judgment on you. Only the big guy upstairs can do it. But the judgment he passes up on you is going to be worse than the one down here on earth. Because you came into his home, desecrate his home, done stuff in his house, cuss, threaten people in his home. And he don't take very play. You don't believe me? Here's some good examples of when you threaten somebody in the house of the Lord. Here we go. Here you go, right here. Right here. Making threats in the house of the Lord is a serious offense and can lead to severe consequences. The Bible warns against dissipating God's house, which is sacred space where God meets with his people. Disrespecting God's house is equivalent to dishonoring God himself. The consequences of such action including divine judgment, as seen in the case of Noah and Hannah, who offered strange fire and were judged by God. Lucius 10, 1-2. So there you go. You're making threats in the house of the Lord. And here we go here. Here's another let's say about worshiping like that right here. Right here, Malachi 1, 16-14, supporting Texas, Isaiah, and Matthew 21, 12-13, Hebrew 12, verses 28-29, and Constance chapter 3, 16-17. Interesting, the house of God is not just a building, it is a sacred space where God meets with his people. In both Old and New Testament, we see the seriousness with which God treats his house. Respecting God's house is equivalent to dishonoring God himself, yet in today's world, many believe have grown careless, casual, and even irreverent in their connection within the sanctions. There you go. Worship should be intentional, reverent, and focused on God, not performance. And worship without reverent, this is 5, 1-2. God warned against speaking or acting authoritatively in his house. So basically, you went in his home, you disrespected him. When you disrespected his home, you disrespected him. And these people don't give a damn, but they don't understand that shit. Let's get back to this video.
Occur outside, on a sidewalk, certain sidewalks, not all sidewalks. And this is like basic what you learn in the first year of law school. It is time, place, and manner restrictions on the First Amendment right of protest, and they were violated here in this case. No question about it. The only question is who was involved, how many were involved, and how many charges are going to be brought here. Those are the questions.
It's absolutely incredible to hear that. Could you talk us through the last time that this argument was used, which was January 6th? Because I tend to recall, and I know many of them, people who were there on January 6th, and they were filming, right? And they said, sorry, my phone was plugged in. They were saying, I was filming, and so therefore I'm a journalist, and I get protection from this act that the federal government said was criminal. And they didn't get any protection. Steve Baker is one that's pretty famous at the Blaze. But there were many others. And so that certainly did not shield these journalists on January 6th breaking in the U.S. Capitol, right?
Yeah, you're correct. Look, I've been practicing First Amendment law for over 30 years, and so I have represented many journalists, mostly conservative, not all conservative. And if someone were to come to me and ask me, hey, is it okay if I embed with a gang of criminals about to commit a crime and videotape it? I would say that would be a poor idea. Do not do that. Let me call my criminal defense attorney friend and let's get you retained. If you think you're going to do something crazy like that, you need to get your bail money ready. And I would advise against it. That would be my advice neutrally, just theoretically. Okay. Now, the leader of this, one of the organizers there who got the kiss from Don Lemon is a lawyer. She's a lawyer for BLM. She's a lawyer for the NAACP, or she has been historically, I think, leader of a chapter there of the NAACP. And a lawyer should know better because this law is well known. But forget the law. A human being should know better than to take their protest into an altar in front of a place where people are coming to worship. It is literally supposed to be a sanctuary from all kinds of distress and fear, and a place to get comfort and solace. And this is just godless behavior to take that into a house of worship. It is, I don't know what we've come to here in this country, that people are doing this willingly, but it won't happen again with impunity. It won't happen in this case with impunity. And it's just not going to happen in America. We won't tolerate it.
I know that you cannot comment on this, but just the richness of Don Lemon potentially being charged by the Klan under the Klan Act is just going to be really something else. I wanted to give you an opportunity, since you're approaching this with such strength, to speak to this photo that's now gone viral. This young child who's being comforted by his father, this young Christian child, and he's what looks like either weeping or crying or terrified. This is an image from the live feed where the man was going row by row. This bearded man was going row by row, screaming at and threatening the Christians, calling them fake Christians inside of their house of worship, and physically threatening harm. You can see the child here weeping in his father's arms, and then you can also see Don Lemon afterwards, saying the purpose of this protest was to make these children uncomfortable. He said it live on his stream. I'd like to, perhaps you could give a message.
So not only you went there and disrespected the house of the Lord, Don Lennon, you actually scared little kids, traumatized them. I swear to God, somebody's going to get their hands on you, and you better pray to God. You better pray to God, because He's the only one that can save your sorry ass at this moment. That person has some compassion and don't hurt you real bad. Since you threaten people in the church and everything, how about somebody who don't go to church threaten you? Put your life on danger. Put your life in harm's way, like you done these people at church. I might not go to church all the time, but disrespecting the house of the Lord is a big sin.